welcome back to the After Hours podcast. I'm your host, Francisco. Co-host today, I have Daniel, and we are joined with Jonny from the Craft Beer channel. What's going on, Jonny?
Hey, not much. Same as the rest of the world. Sat in my kitchen pretending it's an office.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Dan and I have the luxury of working from home most days since we're in software. So, sometimes you just got to show up to a meeting. You put like a little whiskey in your mug on a Zoom call or something, you know?
It's obviously beer for me, but I totally understand that vibe.
Well, I think that's a good starting point. So are you strictly like a beer guy, or do you not dabble too much in the spirit world?
Well, weirdly, I mean, my palate, I like to say my palate's extremely sensitive. So, it makes me really good at picking out flavors in beer, but actually I find stronger spirits pretty tricky to drink. So I drink a bit of bourbon, I drink a lot of wine and a lot of what you guys would call hard cider, which is generally about 7 or 8%. But I find that strong alcohols, I find them really distracting. So I don't drink a huge amount of really strong spirits.
That makes sense, because in your last video, the trends for 2021, I was looking through, and the way that you were able to like pick apart beers just by like a first sip, and just like even looking at them, you could tell if they were cloudy. Like you had predictions on how they were going to taste, how they were going to be like coming out of the can. So it was interesting, and I mean it makes sense why you got to keep your taste buds intact there.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about COVID before we came onto this, but the great concern for me, I haven't caught it yet, but the idea of losing my taste and smell potentially beyond the illness is kind of terrifying for me, and it's weird to have one of the most valuable resources I have be my taste and smell. But yeah, it's something I sort of take very seriously.
So I guess to start things off, can you go ahead and just give a quick rundown for anyone that's not familiar with your channel, what the Craft Beer channel is?
Yeah, so the Craft Beer channel's one of the biggest beer-focused YouTube channels. We started it in 2013. I was watching a lot of YouTube beer reviews as I was starting to get really geeky about beer. And I sort of found that while I was enjoying the reviews and learning a lot from them, nobody was actually leaving their homes. They were doing it in their kitchens, their bedrooms, their gardens, like their man cave shed things that lots of them had. And I wanted to see, literally how beer is made. Like I didn't know what fermenters look like, what brew houses look like. I didn't know whether the beer was aged in wood or in steel or anything like this. So I was working with my business partner, Brad, at the time for Jamie Oliver, the celeb chef. And he founded FoodTube, which is his YouTube channel, in which he puts lots of content about cooking. And we just said to him, hey, would you be up for helping us, for FoodTube, hosting some videos about beer? And he was like, shoot some episodes so I know what it's like and I'll make a decision then. So we shot a couple of and uploaded them, and Jamie liked them and his production company liked them. So we did a couple for him, and it sort of snowballed from there, really. So just making sure we weren't just stuck at home. We did cooking. We went to see brewers. We went to pubs, went to restaurants and did beer and food matching and stuff. And we've got a lot more ambitious since then, but that's sort of how it started and how we tried to make a point of difference on YouTube.
Absolutely. And what's it like from how you started to how it's going now? Because 7 years that's a very impressive amount of time to put into a channel.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people think that YouTube is sort of a get quick rich scheme for a lot of people. But, if you ask anybody who's big on YouTube, most of them will have been doing it for probably 5 or 6 years longer than you think they have. You've just become aware of it. So for the first probably 4 years, we were, very, very small fry. We were getting maybe a couple of hundred views on each video when they went live, and, incredibly pleased with that. And that was even with, a bit of backing from a media giant like Jamie Oliver. And as a result, like the stuff that we could do wasn't very ambitious. So everything was very London centric, which is where I live. We didn't really have any budget to travel or do anything particularly ambitious. So mostly it was favors with friends. It was reviews in interesting locations and a little bit of homebrew and stuff like that. And then I actually took a full-time job. I left Jamie Oliver's and went and worked for a beer importer. And I worked they were called Cave Direct. They imported mostly German and Belgian beer into the UK. And that meant suddenly I could travel. So I started making mini documentaries about the Belgian brewing scene, particularly like Lambics and sort of Trappist and Abbey beers. And then German beer culture, like Southern German beer culture, the Munich Hellers, the Hefeweizens and stuff like that. So we managed to start getting travel in there, and that really helped the channel grow. So in 2018, I took it full time. And now, we have some videos that have over 200,000 views. We've hit 100,000 subscribers on Christmas Eve, so just a couple of weeks ago. And it's almost a full-time gig for me now. I supplement it through doing lots of beer writing for Good Beer Hunting, and I'm writing my 4th book at the moment, doing a lot of writing around that, which is my trade. I was a journalist before I turned to YouTube.
That is an incredible story. And yeah, I mean, obviously, you started off 2013 and now you're at 100,000. Congratulations. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's, when we started, I remember when we celebrated getting 1,000 subscribers and thinking that was just absolutely mad. The idea that we could, fill some of the biggest football stadiums in the country with, soccer stadiums with the people that follow us is just kind of nuts. And, it's an interesting one because subscribers on YouTube, they don't actually equate to views. It's basically like a subscription to a mail out. You may have 100,000 subscriptions to your mail out, only 20, 30% of those people actually open it each time. So, our views are mostly a lot lower than that, but it's a real marker of at least people wanting to be interested. And then you have to keep hooking them in time and time again, which is exhausting, but, challenging in a really fun way.
Yeah, for sure. Imagine selling out Old Trafford with just all of your subscribers.
Yeah.
That's the only park I can name, honestly. I dabble a little bit in soccer/football. Are you a supporter of any clubs?
I'm an Oxford United fan, so I'm from Oxford. Most people outside of the UK, in fact, even inside the UK, won't know whether they have a football team or not, but they do. They're not a very good football team, but yeah, I follow them for my sins.
For sure. Are they like a championship team or like Division 3?
Division 1, so one below the championship, not...
Okay.
When I really got into them, they were a non-professional football team. So they've grown since I got into them about 10, 15 years ago.
There you go. Yeah, they keep growing, and so does your channel. It's great.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned that you've come out with 4 books, and we saw a couple of them. Can you elaborate on your books? Because that's another just amazing thing to be able to make one book, but to make 4, that's incredible.
Yeah. So the first book was called Beer School. The idea behind it was, there are lots of introductions to beer in book form out there. Some fantastic ones from Melissa Cole, Randy Mosher, Garrett Oliver's done some great ones. Or a great one, The Brewmaster's Table. And what we wanted to do was to tell that story, but make it a bit more narrative-led. So we really believe that getting into craft beer it's a bit of a journey. There isn't really a destination that you're headed for, but it definitely feels like you're falling deeper and deeper into this rabbit hole. And so rather than present it as, things that you should know, things that you need to learn, we wanted to present it as, this is all stuff you're going to pick up sort of by osmosis anyway. So let's give it to you in that format. So we talked about our journey into craft beer. We talked about us learning, what malt was, what hops were, and tried to present them in ways that we'd have found helpful while we were there. In that sort of phase of the craft beer journey. So it's a slightly different approach and hopefully a slightly more entertaining approach that was inspired by a video series we put together called Beer School, where we literally, we went to the hop fields of the Czech Republic and learned about hops from a chain-smoking Czech hop grower. Or we went to Munton's Malt in Norfolk, one of the biggest malt growing regions of the world, and learned all about malt by taking a tour of their maltings and stuff like that. So just trying to put a bit more of a personal tilt on it that people could relate to rather than just sort of reading what is essentially a glorified textbook, like a lot of these books are. And then the second book was an interesting one. So usually when you want to write a book, you come up with an idea, you get an agent who likes the idea, and they go out to the publishing houses and try and get it published. We actually got approached by Penguin for this book. They were looking for somebody to write about London beer and where to drink in London. And I sat down for lunch with the publisher who wanted us to write it and said, this is a terrible idea. By the time the book comes out, everything will have changed. There will be twice as many breweries. There will be probably half as many pubs, sadly, because pubs keep closing in the UK. And it will be completely out of date. And they didn't really buy that. They were like, no, we want to do it. So we wrote the book, and what I did was I tried to make it like a snapshot of London then. So while it had all the stuff that the publisher wanted, which is like, this is the address, this is the stuff you might serve. Like, they were even asking me to put what beers are on. And you're like, okay, you really don't get this. Like, it changes every day, let alone every year. But yeah, so it's the second book, The London Craft Beer Guide. The name is a bit of a misnomer, really. Really, it's a snapshot of what London beer culture was like in 2018, told through the 18 best breweries and 40 best pubs And even, I chose them to be the ones that I thought would last forever. Even 5 or 6 of those pubs are gone now, and 3 or 4 of those breweries have died. So hopefully, initially it was a way to drink, and now it's a bit of a historical look, like remember what it was like in the heady days of 2017 and 2018. And then the third book was another interesting one. It was commissioned for an online beer shop that wanted a book to send out with all of their new customers when they put in their first order. So that was sort of a shorter version of Beer School and much more techy, and also guided so that you could literally read it as you drank a beer. So, it's got guides on how to taste beer in real time. So telling you, next do this, make sure that you breathe out after you swallow to get the retronasal appreciation and stuff like that. And then book 4 is my longest book. It's called, the working title's A Year in Beer, and it's all about how seasonality informs what's brewed, what we drink, what we eat with it, and the amazing cultural events that happen around beer. So things like Oktoberfest, things like the Great British Beer Festival, things like green hop festivals, which is where you don't use the hops like fresh from the bines straight into the beer and stuff like that. So to try and give a kind of seasonal and more natural, holistic kind of approach to the way that we drink throughout the year.
That's unbelievable. And every book has something to be learned from. And the one that caught me the most was the Beer School, right? So what is the process for somebody that is a novice in craft beer? And what are like the first steps to learning about the field?
I mean, everything that I know or did know for the first sort of maybe 2 years was learnt through talking to other beer geeks. I think that's how most people get into it. Usually it's a friend who hands you a glass of something, and they've probably done it 10 times before and you've hated what they've given you. But then you get something that really captures your imagination. It's a bit of a revelatory moment, and it's all about asking questions. So I get very frustrated when people are really snobbish and they're like, you shouldn't be drinking that because of this. We should never judge people for what they drink, but we should ask them questions and get them to ask questions about it so that we can, really learn and understand what it is that we're drinking. And that's the major process, So it's a real commitment to read a book. You've got to be really into it already to buy it, to read the whole thing, to digest it. So asking questions, and that's what's so great about tap rooms. America's so lucky to have this real taproom culture, and the UK is only just catching up. But where you'll have somebody behind the bar who really knows what they're talking about, and you can ask them questions, and mostly they'll love that. There's the odd snob among them, but mostly they're there because they love talking to people about beer. And beer is a social thing. It should be all about asking questions, whether it's about beer or about I was about to say politics, probably not politics right now, but whatever it is, it's something that's designed to be talked over.
I was going to say, I think it's great that you are trying to perpetuate the culture of, information and knowledge exchange. And it's not just a one-sided conversation, like you said, where you have people in the world that are, snobbish or standoffish when it comes to their preferences. I feel like that's one main reason why a lot of people my age, I'm in my early 20s, so is Dan, they're kind of intimidated to start, feeling out that process for trying new beers and new spirits, just because it is almost like you have to know what you're talking about before you even join the club. Then you're like in a catch-22 because it's, how can I fit in with this culture that I know nothing about, but I want to learn more about, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it was really hammered home to me really frequently, in that lots of my friends who I know very well and who know me very well will still feel awkward about drinking a beer in front of me, because they'll think I'm judging everything that they're drinking. And that's from me working really hard to try and not come across that way. So, beer drinkers, whiskey drinkers, wine drinkers, we all have a reputation of being snobbish because we're so passionate about what we do. And it's really important that we put loads of effort into not coming across that way and asking them as many questions as they might want to ask us. So it's a two-way conversation. And on the Craft Beer channel, we're really careful to make sure that's the case as well. First, YouTube is free. For better or for worse, it means there's lots of awful content out there and lots of really dangerous content out there. But it also means that there's all this amazing information, whether it's about beer or food, cooking, whatever it is, that's completely free. And those comment sections, much as they're ridiculed, are a way that we can make sure it's a two-way street. And I made a big thing of replying to every single comment that is put on our channel, so that nobody feels like their view isn't valid and everybody's question is answered. Even the trolls. I reply to the trolls just because half the time, if you reply to a troll, they'll apologise. they'll go, yeah, I'm sorry, that was a bit mean, wasn't it? If you just respond nicely. So we've even converted some trolls into Patreons of ours, so getting them to subscribe to us and pay money to support what we do.
It's impressive.
Yeah, it's not always the case. Not always the case.
Do you have any highlight memories of any comments that a troll has left in the past that just really sticks out? Or
I mean, the one this wasn't one where I managed to win them round, but there was another example of a reputation that beer geeks have as beer being for men, which is probably my least favourite cliche about beer because historically it was mostly made by women for a start. And there's no reason to think that women wouldn't enjoy beer as much as men. But there was a guy who came onto a video we did about lambic. So we were tasting through fruited lambic, so cherry lambics, raspberry lambics. And this guy came on and he said, cherry beer, didn't want to call it Creek, is for beta males and hipsters. I think it was the exact phrase he used. And we got into a big, long debate with me trying to say that it was, seriously reductive to claim that any beer is designed for men or for women or anywhere across the spectrum or any race or anything. And got into this big long debate, which I didn't win. I screenshotted the statement calling me a beta male, and it's the pinned tweet on our Twitter account because I love it so much.
I think that's definitely one thing that a lot of organizations, companies, channels that they really lack is replying to all comments. I've seen, mostly when channels doing good or even like businesses, they reply to mostly the positive comments, and then they'll either not respond to negative comments or sweep them under the rug. But that is then again having a one-sided conversation in which that two-way dialogue is not being perpetuated. So I think it's really great that you do that.
And it's bad business sense as well, because if you're getting positive comments, you've already converted these people. They're already listening. They're interested in what you're trying to do. If you just ignore the negative ones, then at what point are you going to win those people over and give them the information they might need to take a different point of view? It's, if anything, you should be ignoring the positive ones and going, job done, and then going to the negative ones.
Yeah, and going off of the whole beer stereotype, I also am not a fan of that either. I usually break the stereotype because one of the big stereotypes over here is that all the fruity drinks are for women, and then your standard, the IPAs and all the other beers, that's for men. And it's no, I do like IPAs and beers, but I also love me some fruity drinks. They're delicious. There's nothing wrong with drinking them.
That's facts. Yes, sir.
Craft beer became a thing because we were looking for diversity, right? We were, there are still some really tasty macro-made drinks. Pilsner Urquell is the ultimate example. But what was lacking was any kind of diversity in what we were able to drink, particularly in America. In the UK, we were lucky enough that we had we had cask ale. In Germany and Belgium, they had their own local styles. But what we wanted was lots of different flavors. So it's kind of crazy that beer geeks are now trying to be that's too wild, that's too different, or that's girly, or that's whatever it is. No, that is exactly what we should be championing, exactly what the people who started the craft beer movement wanted. They wanted variation. Yeah,
you got to continuously push the envelope. Otherwise, you might not have reached your best stuff yet.
Yeah, 100%. And I think New England IPA is a fantastic example of that. We could have just kept making West Coast IPAs, but somebody who maybe didn't like bitterness or maybe saw this sort of intrinsic, amazing, juicy flavor that we have in English yeast that we'd, stopped using. And they kept pushing that envelope. And some New England beers are way too sweet, kind of flabby, lacking structure. But there are now thousands of new breweries making fantastic New England IPA and millions of new beer geeks who are interested in all kinds of beer because of that stuff.
So do you stay strictly to the IPAs, or do you still enjoy, a domestic beer, stuff like that?
I drink absolutely everything. I mean, my favorite style is Pilsner, which I think seems kind of mad to a lot of beer geeks because that's almost where we started. But through everything that I've learned, I've realized and I've discovered that if you scratch a little bit under the surface, under these much bigger producers of Pilsners and Hellers, there's this whole subworld and subgenre of amazing pale lagers in the Czech Republic and in Germany and increasingly in the UK and America. And, what the reason that Pilsner took over the world is because it's so damn drinkable. It's, it's honey, digestive biscuit, lemon, strawberry notes if you're using SARS, fresh grass, all these incredible tasty flavors, all done in a package that's incredibly drinkable. So when it's done really well, I think it's the most exciting style in the world. I don't just drink Pilsners because I love them. That's my day-to-day drink, but I drink lots and lots of IPA and pale ales. I drink huge amounts of classic British styles, loads of best bitters and porters, particularly on cask, although I can't because all the pubs are closed at the moment. Like, that's what I'm really missing. And we did a video during the first lockdown in the UK where I got so desperate for a pint of best bitter, I brewed one at home and bought a cask ale hand pull to pour it myself. So yeah, I mean, I feel partly because I love all kinds of beers, but also I feel this responsibility to champion all of them, even though I don't really love them. Like, I don't really love pastry stouts, aren't really something that I particularly enjoy. I've got quite a dry palate, but we still talk about them all the time on the Craft Beer channel because it's what people are looking for. It's what they're interested in. It's what they want to learn about. So I feel the sort of responsibility to remain as impartial as possible when it comes to style.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to the beer school series, what are some favorite videos, like some favorite lessons that you've taught through that video series?
The favorite lesson, and the lesson I think is most important that we've done, has been our How to Taste Like a Beer Judge. So for that, we managed to team up with Ray Daniels, who founded the Cicerone company, which is, if anybody doesn't know, it's a company that tests your beer knowledge and your beer serving knowledge. So it was designed to have a way of proving your knowledge to be a beer server so that you'd be a good bar person. It's now kind of taken on more meaning to sort of be like, are you a serious beer geek? If you want to be, you have to be a Cicerone, which I think is absolute nonsense because, the Cicerone has its place and it's for beer servers. But as part of that, you're taught how to properly appraise a beer, which has lots of different phases to it. 3 ways of getting the aroma, 2 ways of doing the taste. And I think that while, my whole philosophy around beer is that the more you learn, the more you can shut up and drink it. Sometimes if you really want to understand a beer, you need to use those techniques, and beer deserves to be treated that way. Like, it is a complex, hard to make and very layered drink that you can appraise like you would a fine wine or a whiskey. And I learned so much making that, and that's where so much of my knowledge about beer structure and beer flavour comes from. And it's one of our most watched videos, and that makes me very happy because it shows that people want to get to the bottom of their glass. And I promise you, if you watch that video and learn those techniques and use it when you're approaching a new and exciting beer, you will enjoy the rest of that beer significantly more for having done it, because you'll pick out all these nuances you wouldn't just get drinking it like by the pint.
It's funny that you brought up Cicerone because one of our previous guests, Kim Collin at Guardian Brewing in Michigan in the United States, she has a very similar on-hands program, I guess. It's somewhat like a beer school, but it's like over the course of 2 days. It's just like a crash course where she instructs people how to taste like a different flight of beer each day, and really highlighting like the notes and how to understand like the beer itself and why each flavor has a different profile. So that was really cool. And Cicerone was a new word that got added to my vocabulary about 3 months ago. So that was great that you were able to bring that back. So how important is it? Well, maybe not important, but how crucial has it been in your experience to live in Europe, where there's so many different cultures around you, where you can, go to Germany, you can go to France, and you go to the Netherlands, and then obviously you have like UK style brewing. How important is that to your experience and your knowledge growth?
I mean, it's been everything for me because, joining Cave Direct and being able to travel around Europe, that was the moment that the Craft Beer channel really took off, because what it meant was we weren't just producing what most sort of content producers are doing on YouTube, which is telling you about their life, right? So they live in this bubble and they tell you about it. That's kind of what vlogging has kind of become. And there's travel documentaries and stuff on YouTube that are great, but that's kind of how it is. And a lot of how the beer content was made, it was like, I managed to get hold of this beer. You probably can't get hold of it, but I can, so I'm going to talk about it. And I was really conscious that was a flaw for the first couple of years of the Craft Beer channel. So having all of that on our doorstep has not only meant that the Craft Beer channel was possible, that we could talk about lambics. We could visit these amazing little Belgian breweries. Like there's a brewery called Toye, Toye, where not only did he, come up with his own beer recipe and brew it, he literally welded the tanks that he uses, and he barely distributes because he's very small, but his beer is absolutely beautiful. And there's no way that I could have done that if I was not in somewhere as accessible as London. Yeah, I mean sorry, not the UK. I was about to say the EU, but as of 3 days ago, we're not fucking part of it. But yeah, it's such a powerful place to be, in the heart of Europe, which is where all of modern beer came from and where most of its history is as well. It started in the Middle East, but a lot of the, post sort of the time of the Romans and the ancient Egyptians, a lot of the technological advances were happening in Europe and continued to be the home of great brewing and of all of the variation in beer brewing was there until America in sort of the late 70s, early 80s sort of picked up the mantle and started driving it further forward with their new hops and slightly different approach. So we've been really lucky to be able to talk about all the historical styles, and we still don't do enough of it. I'd love to do more once we can travel again. But what's really interesting is most of our audience is now American. So up until very start of last year, the UK was our biggest audience. Europe accounted for about 80% of our audience. Now it's kind of switched. We're about 55% American. So we started trying to do lots more American content, and we did our first feature-length documentary over there. But now I do slightly feel the pressure to be in America, where there's so much variation and you don't have to cross borders. And quite literally, Brexit will affect that. It's just as easy to go to America as it is to France for me now. So I'll probably be spending more time in American breweries going forward.
That's really cool. Do you have anything that you're looking forward to now with your new venture into America?
Oh, there's so much we need to do. So we've already done. We've been to Northern California to go to Pliny. We did our feature-length documentary called "Looking for a New England" in New England. I've done New York a couple of times. We've been to Florida as well. I mean, Florida's fantastic for beer. I don't know how well known that is in the States, but it was not known in the UK. But it has amazing breweries, particularly around Tampa Bay. So yeah, we've done those regions. And what's top of our list? Well, there's two places that are top of our list. One is Denver, and the other one is Chicago.
That makes sense. Like Colorado, Denver, it has just been popping off for distilling and craft beer. Like we've had, I believe, 4 guests now from Colorado on our podcast, and they always have something new and innovative to bring to the table. So it is no surprise that is the mecca for craft beer, or what it will be in a couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we get a lot of people who say that we need to go to South California and sort of see the San Diego scene. At the moment, from what I'm hearing, from what I see, that's not where the innovation and the excitement's coming from. They're still fantastic at West Coast IPAs and stuff like that, but a lot of the innovation is coming from elsewhere at the moment. I mean, that will change. Beer is cyclical, and beer is also just constantly reinventing itself in different regions. So probably by the time I get to Denver, it won't be the hotspot it is. Just like New England will probably fall out of favor at some point, but it's still, I think New England, particularly Vermont, was still, and Maine were my 2 favorite places to drink in America that I found so far.
Awesome. Any places in particular that we should check out?
Well, I mean, there's of course the obvious ones, like The Alchemist and Hill Farmstead, who we visited, but Foam, who are about 40 minutes or so from The Alchemist in Burlington, Vermont. Not only do they make amazing beer in their beautiful brew pub, their brew pub is right, a couple of meters from Lake Champlain, and it's just one of the most beautiful places to have a drink. And then out in Maine, visiting Oxbow, their beers are just fantastic. Allagash, one of my favourite breweries in the world, and we got to visit them, and that was absolutely incredible. And then a little bit further south, almost in Boston, in Salem, there's a brewery called Notch. They make the best Pilsner in America by a country mile. It's just incredible nectar that I could drink for the rest of my life without needing any other beer. And they keep reinventing themselves as well and trying to recreate the original Pilsner Urquell pitch lining to the barrels and all this kind of great experimentation that's super niche and super geeky, and probably a bit too geeky even for Craft Beer Channel, but that's the kind of stuff that excites me.
Going off of location wise, not necessarily beer wise, but location wise, where is your favorite place to drink a beer?
Probably my favourite place to drink a beer is a pub called the Blue Boar in a place called Coniston in the Lake District, which is a beautiful, well, it's not a mountain range, but it's a national park in the UK in the north of England. It's absolutely stunning, lakes everywhere, and the Blue Boar is a brew pub and just a really old, almost, I don't think it's thatched. In my head, it's thatched, but I don't think it is. That's how sort of rose-tinted my memory of this pub is. But it's just, the absolute cliche of what you think a British pub is. But all the beer is brewed next door, and it's absolutely stunning. Classic British styles, bitters, porters, milds, barley wines. And you can sit there and have a steak and ale pie and one of the best bitters you'll ever drink. It's best in winter when there's a roaring fire and it's cold outside. That's my favourite kind of beer, like a fireside, hearty British food kind of vibe. And then one of my favourite places in the world is a little chain of pubs called Lokal that you find in the Czech Republic, where they only serve Pilsner Urquell fresh from the tank. So it's not kegged, it's never seen oxygen, it's just fermented in a tank and shipped out to these breweries, to these pubs. And when you sit down, you get given a little card, and it's got little drawings of pints on them. And you just put your hand up every time you want a beer, and they'll bring you over a beer and cross off one of the little pictures of the beers. And then at the end, you hand that in and you get charged according to how many you've had crossed off. And they'll bring you small plates of food. And it's just really, really relaxed. There's no queuing at the bar. There's no loud conversation. There's no music. It's just you, beers, some simple food, and as many friends as you can gather. And it's a lovely place to be.
That sounds phenomenal. That's it for me right there. That'd be so awesome. How much of a difference does it make that it's not seen oxygen, like the beer itself? It's not kegged. Obviously I imagine that there is a distinct difference there. Like, how important is that?
I mean, it totally depends on the style of beer. This sort of idea of tank fresh beer only really matters for really, really delicate beer. And it's mostly only really done with unfiltered and unpasteurized pilsners. There is like a genuine difference that you can taste. Oxidation, we think about it in terms of like New England IPA, where these beers have gone brown and they taste of cardboard and they're awful. But tiny, tiny bits of oxidation that you'll get in pretty much all packaging, if it's not stored right, if it's not drunk fresh, will start to just kind of knock off the absolute top notes of those hops, those bright lemon citrus, that really fresh grass aroma, that kind of thing. It would just knock those off and just make you go, when you drink it, you'd be like, hey, that's a nice beer. But if you have like a tank fresh Pilsner Urquell next to a kegged Pilsner Urquell that, may have got a little bit of oxidation, because it will have got some in the kegging process, and maybe it's been sat in a warehouse for 3 months before being cracked open, the difference is light and day. You just need them next to each other to know. But even when they're not next to each other, that one that hasn't seen any oxygen, that's been drunk within a couple of weeks of being brewed and has been kept cold the whole time, there's something about it that just makes it 10 times more drinkable, and you can't stop drinking it. And that's sort of the magic that pasteurization or bad storage or a little bit too much oxidation can kind of take away. It's a little bit intangible. But, lots of people have drunk bottled Pilsner Urquell and gone, yeah, it's all right, I don't quite get the fuss. But it's why everybody who goes to Pilsen comes back going, Pilsner Urquell is the best beer in the world. And I was exactly that person when I did it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you should do a taste test of like a Heineken in the United States, and then, go to Amsterdam and then get a Heineken there, or Belgium, and see what's the hype.
Yeah, and even with those, they're probably brewed in different locations as well. So it's getting a global reputation for a beer brand is really tricky, because, it's brewed in different places or shipped further distances. And, Pilsner Urquell, it's all brewed in the same place. It's a great model of, showing what's the difference between a bottle, a keg, and a tank fresh. Which, it's not a video we've actually done, but that's a good thought to try.
We've talked a lot about Europe and North America, but what about our friends down under? Are they still experimenting in the game? How's the craft beer scene down there?
I have to be honest. I've never actually made it out to Australia or New Zealand or South Africa, but I've tasted a lot of beer from those regions, and in particular, New Zealand, is as good as any other brewing nation that I've been to. From what I've tasted, they're a hop growing region, so are parts of Australia. So as soon as the craft beer movement kicked off, they immediately had access, A, to something, fresh and good, but B, to something completely different to everybody else. So there's a definite different flavour to Antipodean and hops due to the region they're grown in, the varieties that are grown there. But New Zealand, actually, weirdly enough, when we started the craft beer channel, one of the things we put down as like a marker of success is if we could go to New Zealand. I think just because it was the furthest place we could think of that just happened to have good beer. But it's still sort of this weird marker of success in my brain that I need to get there. But it does have fantastic beer and fantastic wine. And it's the same with Australia. And we see some Australian beers come over. Pirate Life, who sadly sold to AB InBev, came over here for a while. There's Stone and Wood, there's Lip Creatures. And then there's great breweries that I've had bits of, called like La Serene and Range Brewing, who make really, really special beer. And then South Africa's exploded as well. They've got great hops and a great beer scene as well, with lots of amazing breweries like Cape Brewing and Devil's Peak, I think they're called, who are a really big brewery. They're sort of the brew dog of South Africa. So they're really growing as well.
I'm impressed with your ability to recall all of these places, and some places you've never even been to, and you know the names of them and locations. Very impressive.
What's worrying is what stuff is being forced out of my brain that can allow me to reel off breweries in countries I've never been to. That's what scares me.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. So how was your experience trying the world's strongest beer? I believe it was 58%?
57.8, yeah. Yeah, I mean, firstly, so that's now our biggest video, even though we only released it at the end of summer last year. And to some extent, I feel like it's a bit of a shame that that's our biggest video, because it's the most kind of trashy video we've ever done.
That's always how it happens on YouTube, honestly.
It definitely is. Yeah. It's like, I mean, who wouldn't click on a video that says trying the world's strongest beer? Right. To be fair to everybody. But I mean, so firstly, there's this huge debate about whether it is the strongest, because Brewmeister, which is another Scottish brewery, made snake venom, which they claim is 65%, but they spike it with pure ethanol. So it's not actually created as part of the brewing process or as part of even a distillation process of that liquid. It's made using, we could make that at home if we had enough ethanol.
A mixed drink.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, the beer itself, so the beer was made they had several batches of beer that was between about 15 and 23%, just through natural fermentation. And then I think in America you call it jacking or freeze distilling. So you freeze the liquid, the alcohol doesn't freeze at the same temperature as a lot of the water in that beer. So you get left, if you take the ice away, you're left with a stronger beer and a stronger beer. So they just did that as far as they could. And you have to go colder and colder each time. So they had to get down to about minus 80 at its coldest to extract more. And I mean, the flavour, I've got to be honest, it wasn't great. It tasted of soy sauce, really, like if you just put some rosemary in your mouth, like really herbal, medicinal. I feel like the best thing you could do with it is dip some sushi in it, really. But I mean, what an adventure. And that's why with the video that we did, we wanted to tell the story of it, because we knew that the beer itself was going to be pretty disgusting. So we got one of the guys who created it and talked through the story of it, because it's an incredible story of sort of one-man upmanship between two breweries who eventually came together to make it, which is Schorschbräu and Brewdog. So I thought the story, as is the case with many, many beers, the story was actually better than the beer itself.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a beer that's a higher percentage than some spirits, it doesn't seem the most palatable to drink straight. So that's understandable.
Yeah, and like I said at the start of the podcast, I'm super sensitive to like really strong sort of ethanol flavors. So I was just like, I couldn't get my head around it at all, really. And I think that came across in the video a little bit. Usually I'm chattering away like I am today, but with that one, I was like, where's the sushi? It's sort of something I remember saying. That's about it.
So that's one of your most popular videos. Is there any videos that maybe isn't as popular that you think is really underrated, that you think should have more views?
I mean, all of them. We try not to put out stuff that we're not really proud of, and I've got to be honest. There's lots of stuff out there that we have made that we're not that proud of, because the sad thing about YouTube is that the algorithm is the king, right? So you have to keep feeding this monster that's constantly demanding new content from you, or else you drop down in the rankings. So we upload every week, which, as a journalist, I'm lucky to put out maybe 2 articles a month. But when it comes to video, which is, arguably a harder medium to get, 10, 15 minutes of great content together, I'm doing it every week. So sometimes it's not as good as I want it to be. But I mean, the video that I think it's got about 50,000 views, and I'm very proud of that. But our feature-length documentary, Looking for a New England, in which we basically did a road trip from Boston out to Vermont, back through Maine, and down again to Boston, visiting some really historic and amazing breweries. We went to Hill Farmstead, Allagash, Alchemist, Foam, Treehouse, Notch. Went to all those breweries and kind of told the story of modern beer in New England. Over an hour and a quarter. And it's a proper narrative. It's a proper adventure. It's a real road trip. It was just me and Brad. There was no production team there, but we filmed everything ourselves, including nights out. There's a great scene where we end up drunk in a karaoke bar, and I'm singing Drops of Jupiter.
Yeah, I recall seeing that.
And it's I think it's a really fun documentary. And we won Beer Broadcaster of the Year in the US and in the UK for it. So yeah, when I say that, like, it kills me that the strongest beer in the world video has 200,000 views, like, that doesn't necessarily kill me. What kills me is that the documentary has 50, and I wish it was the other way around. There's also some videos we put out a couple of weeks ago all about natural hard cider. So essentially it's the same approach that we take to mixed firm beer, to lambics and all this kind of stuff. So completely natural fermentation, no yeast is added. It's all the yeast that's on the apples already. And they're just left to ferment, and then they're blended and bottled. We did 2 videos around that almost got a little bit of, it was kind of dismissed by a lot of our audience, which was a bit of a shame. We definitely converted some people going like, hey, cider is an important part of British culture and an incredible and beautiful and nuanced drink. The people who make it, they call it session wine. They're like, vineyards grow grapes and make it with that. We grow apples and make it with that. And it just happens to be that apples have less sugar than grapes in. So it's comes out 7, 8, 9% instead of, 11, 12, 13. And, that video only got about 6,000, 7,000 views. And that was, a 25-minute documentary about the apple harvest, which I think, I'm not sure whether it deserved more. I wish there was more interest in hard cider, because it's a beautiful drink and something that I'm really excited about at the moment. And I rung in the new year drinking cider, not beer, this year for the first time.
No, yeah, that's always a struggle for YouTube content creators, trying to find the balance between what your audience wants and what you also want to put out, and trying to find like that happy medium. I have my own personal YouTube channel. It's got a little bit of traction, but not a whole lot, where, it focuses on one thing. But if I just change up just a little bit to just go a little off, not necessarily going off brand, but just going a little off of what kind of like the audience is demanding, won't get nearly as much attention as some of the other videos.
Yeah, it's like you say, it's a balancing act of, we, our sort of in-house motto is entertain first, educate second. So always make sure it's fun, and then always make sure that people are learning something underneath. But sort of the third thing should that we don't really talk about, but we always try to expand horizons a little bit. So I'd rather produce something that got 5,000 views and change the mind of 100 people than, say, the Brewdog one, which got 200,000 views, but probably changed no one's mind. Everyone was there for a reason, which was to laugh at how silly this beer was. So while I do that video again in a heartbeat, it's 200,000 views. I can't say no to that. The stuff that excites me actually is that cider video where, we didn't grow much as a result. We didn't gain any advertising revenue. We didn't gain any subscribers. But, we have a Discord forum, which you only get access to if you're one of our supporters. So it's this really nice, small, like Facebook forum, essentially, that me and Brad hang out in every day, and all our subscribers do as well. There's about 200 of us in there. And when I put that video out there, it got so much excitement. Loads of people, having their mind blown, going, I'd never seen an apple harvest. I'd never tried a natural cider. I didn't know they existed. I've already bought this and this and this. What do you think? What flavors should I be looking for? And like getting really excited, like it was, a whole new thing for them, a whole new world opening up. That's what really excites me, and that's where the value is as well, because those people support what we do, both financially and in terms of helping us generate content. The best thing we ever did was start that Discord forum, because we get that feedback and we know that we're making a difference when we do the smaller stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. And I noticed another thing that you have included in your Patreon account is the man, the myth, legend himself, Brad, and his famous patches that he designs. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Brad, or the Brad, as he's known on the channel, he was working at Jamie Oliver as well when I was, and we became friends because we kept meeting in the pub and drinking the same thing, like at lunchtime and in the evenings. And he was on Jamie's creative team. So he's a graphic designer and animator by trade. He's now a freelance graphic designer and animator. So as soon as we started wanting, as soon as we went, we need to launch a Patreon. We should probably get some merch. We need to find a way to monetize what we're doing without doing too much sponsored content that, is going to turn people off and not be independent. We were like, well, we've got a graphic designer as one of the founders. So Brad started designing up loads of really cool merchandise, which people can buy, and the patches. So if you give $3 in our Patreon, you get every year a patch that no one else gets outside of the Patreon. It's almost like a scout badge. So it'll have the year that you supported us and some special little bit of design, which has either been like our logo or some little funny thing that Brad and I have come up with. Like I think last year's was Snit Happens. Snit is a particular way of pouring a Czech Pilsner, where it's basically half head and half beer, and it's super smooth, like liquid meringue on top, Italian meringue on top, and then like a really low carbonated smooth beer underneath. And we did a pun on Shit Happens with that, and just trying to play around with it. And a lot of those designs end up on T-shirts and stuff as well that we sell. A lot of our T-shirts are probably going to get us sued at some point. We've done a play on Budweiser that says "Be Wiser, Drink Craft" and stuff like that. But no cease and desists have arrived yet, so the channel's still surviving.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I can imagine that obviously, you have the skill set that Brad has. I mean, he can make a lot of cool shit. So you got patches, you got merch. That's pretty cool. Are you guys thinking about expanding your product line anytime soon?
Yeah, I mean, the main issue, like I said, because our audience is now mostly American, we need to find a way to get that merchandise out to Americans. So we're working like literally quite hard now trying to find a partner in America. But what we want to do is start doing a lot of breweries, they'll do quite crap merch. It's the kind of thing that you're drunk and you enjoy the beers, so you buy it and then you get home and it goes in a drawer and you never look at it again. What we're really keen to do is to make bottle openers that have additional functions. I don't want to say what it is in case someone steals the idea, but you'll see eventually. We've also come up with an idea for a pretty revolutionary beer glass that, again, I can't say anything about, but we're hoping we can release that all over the world. And that'll be like stuff that really helps beer geeks and helps make beer a bit more accessible to people. So that's where we're going to try and take it. And all the time on the channel, we're talking about people that already do that. Like the best beer gadget in the world for me is a bottle opener called a Hermetis, which is just a normal bottle opener, but it can also hermetically seal bottles. If you don't finish like a big bottle of something, you can seal it up again. And it will stay good for 2 or 3 days. You can come back to it.
That's revolutionary.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Stuff like that we're always championing.
That's so amazing. It sounds like you guys are just creative masters. So I mean, like going off of that and just with everything, where do you think your channel and everything is going to be within the next 20 years? So like way off in the future, where do you see yourself?
It's a question that my wife and my parents asked when I took this full time, and I didn't have an answer then, and I don't really have an answer now. It's an interesting one. You can kind of timestamp yourself a little bit by being in a visual medium. So that not everybody will want to watch, say, a 50-year-old Jonny talking about beer on YouTube. I say that now. I don't know for sure. So, I mean, we're always looking at ways that we can build the craft beer channel brand into something a little bit wider. So we do brand consultancy for breweries, obviously with our skill set. So I'm a trained journalist and was head of marketing for a Belgian beer importer for 4 years. And then Brad is a graphic designer. So we help breweries with branding, with digital marketing, stuff like that, to try and fund us keeping the content going. In terms of what our fans and our viewers can keep watching, I really hope the YouTube channel can be successful for 30 more years. I haven't been doing it since I was born, but for 30 years. I really hope our podcast will last forever. The podcast, if you haven't come across it, is every Friday for 20 minutes. Brad and I just catch up about what we've been doing that week, the video that we released and the comments. So we read through the comments and respond to them and have chats. We take questions from our viewers, and it's the most fun thing I do every week. It's the highlight of my work week, sitting down with Brad over a beer and just going through everything that we've done and we've learned that week. And I think that is kind of timeless content, particularly because it's a two-way conversation with the audience as well, because they can record stuff and send it in. And then, books are what I love. I love reading about beer and I love writing about beer. And I really hope that I can keep writing books as long as publishers will keep commissioning me. I think probably I'll end up doing what most YouTubers do, which is actually, if it gets to the point where I'm not comfortable being in front of camera, or if interest in that drops off, I'll go to the back of camera. So I'll become a director of content and hand over to some fresher minds and fresher presenters, and hopefully I can help them with their narratives and their production values, which is the way that a lot of YouTubers sort of go. It's a very famous thing that you get. They call it creator burnout from just putting yourself out there so much. So much good stuff comes at you, so much bad stuff comes at you, and so much energy is expended every time you go on camera that not everyone can keep doing it. And I think people underestimate the energy that all these famous TV presenters that have been doing it for 40 years have inside them to keep doing that. And I hope I have it, but we never know. But I'll be around in the beer industry until the day I die, that's for sure.
All right, well, now I have two questions now. I mean, you're spilling a little bit of the beans on the YouTube side. What are some other unwritten rules or things that people might not know about YouTube specifically? Because I had no idea that is a transition that some content creators take.
It's like everything in this world. Once you fall down that rabbit hole, there is this little community of people that have all these shared in-jokes and secrets and patterns that their life are going to go to. If you look at all the people that were famous on YouTube 10 years ago, lots of people go oh, well, what happened to that person or that person? And I almost guarantee they're directing documentaries or running other people's YouTube channels. Just like in football or probably in American football, once you finish your playing days, you become a pundit or a coach. You go from everything that you learned while you had the energy to learn it to trying to pass it on. So, yeah, lots of the really big YouTubers of years ago are now directing stuff that's still going onto YouTube, or if they're really good, they're making TV documentaries and stuff like that. Other sort of industry secrets, I mean, the fact, I mean, I'll tell you now, it used to be people didn't talk about how much they earned on YouTube. I can tell you that even for a creator my size, 100,000 subscribers, which is considered, very large. It's in the top, I think, 200,000 channels in the world, which is, obviously sounds like a lot of channels, but, within a world of 7 billion people, it's not. We still earn less than $1,000 in advertising revenue every month. We earn about $800 a month in advertising revenue. So that's why our Patreon's so vital. Most of the money that YouTubers earn does not come from YouTube. It comes from sponsorship deals off the back of that, whether you see that on the YouTube channel or not. So the biggest YouTubers, people like PewDiePie and people like them, YouTube is their means to an end. It's not the end itself. It's not what's earning them the money. And all of the money that we earn comes from the fact that the YouTube channel's given me a platform on which I can, write books, write for amazing publications like Could Be Hunting or national papers in the UK like the Independent and stuff like that. So, very few people are getting rich off of YouTube, but there's a lot of rich people on YouTube, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Follow up to that. Does your monetization get hurt by the fact that you are promoting alcohol consumption?
Great question. No idea.
Okay.
It's something that we ask ourselves a lot, and definitely there are advertisers that don't want to advertise on alcohol channels. We know that, and we've been told that. What's, I guess, a bigger factor for us is the fact that that explains why we don't get a lot of advertising revenue from YouTube. Definitely, you're not going to have toys advertised on our channel. You're not going to have cars advertised on our channel because, you can't advertise a car while talking about alcohol. So that explains why our what's called CPM, the actual money we earn off of each 1,000 views, is pretty low. But the reason we struggle to earn money outside of YouTube is because we refuse to take money from the companies that actually have that budget. I wouldn't call us fiercely independent, but we have a thing called the blacklist, which we've never put public, but it's a list of companies we'd never ever work with because we deem them unethical. And I can tell you, controversially, AB InBev are not on that list. However, Heineken are. We would never feature a Heineken product on the craft beer channel. But unfortunately, a lot of those, Heineken own 2 brilliant craft breweries in the UK, and other unethical breweries own lots of great craft breweries in the UK. And it means that not only can we not feature those breweries, we can't take sponsored content from those people. So we've mostly strung ourselves up, basically. We can't take money from the people that are emailing us quite frequently going, hey, do you want to do this or this or this? We had, do you know Foster's, the beer brand? We had them offer us a silly amount of money just to make a video that slagged off Foster's. And we just said no, because even if we're slagging off Foster's, we're promoting that brand to people, and there will be people watching that don't think Foster's is an awful product and that your business methods are unethical. So we're not going to take those thousands of pounds. Yeah, I mean, it's earning money as a content creator in the beer world is incredibly tough if you don't want to work with companies that you see as detrimental to the part of the beer industry you love. And then on top of that, alcohol just generally is not seen as something safe to advertise against. That's why we rely so much on our Patreons and why we're so grateful to all 260 of them.
Yeah, for sure. Foster's it's becoming more known here, I would say. So slag off, that's like dissing a brand, right? I wasn't sure what the terminology was.
Sorry, yes, to insult. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of reminds me of the viral video that Trevor Wallace made where he was like, White Claws, no laws when you're drinking claws, and like all this other goofy shit. Like I don't know if you've seen it, but since that was like one of his most popular videos, and that was in 2018 when White Claw like first popped off. Like it went viral.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what it reminded me of.
I don't know that advert, but I know the phrase "no laws when you're drinking White Claws." So
yeah,
the effect, whether he was joking when he said that or not, just shows that there's idiots out there excusing bad behaviour by saying, there's no laws when you're drinking claws. So that's kind of the intention of the content. To some extent, can be irrelevant if it could ever be misconstrued, and that's why we passed on that opportunity to slag off Foster's in public.
So, do some of these partnerships, do they want to make like contractual agreements where you are pretty much promoting their brand and only their brand? Is that like an opportunity that's been presented before, or do people know when they come to you that you guys are a variety? You guys are a jack of all trades.
Yeah, people kind of know that. Generally, people come to us for a specific video about a specific product that we produce, and then, to all intents and purposes, pretend it never happened. It doesn't affect the rest of the content that we do. What we have done, actually, within the last couple of weeks, I can't say the company, but we have signed our first ever exclusivity deal with a company.
Nice.
Which, means that we'll be profitable next year, which we were profitable for the first time ever last year. And this year, we know we're going to be profitable again. So that's a real relief. And it's a super ethical company with an amazing product. It's a homebrew product. So it also means that we can still bring in lots of other homebrew stuff because, there's a million different bits of equipment you need. And we're not touching any of our independence about, reviewing beers or talking about beers. So it was, a big step for us to sign something like that. But hopefully we're going to show that it can be done right.
For sure. Yeah, be on the lookout, everybody. That's really sweet. So at what age did you know that like this was your first love? Or maybe not your first love, but this was a love and like any passion and interest that you were going to ride or die by?
It was 2009. So I was 22 and I was... Well, there's kind of two moments that were really close to each other. One was I walked into a pub near where I live now called The Stag, where they had a beer called Red Hook IPA, which you might know.
I'm not familiar.
It's an old school West Coast IPA from Seattle. The brewery's called Red Hook. It's not a well-known brand anymore. It's kind of disappearing off the face of the earth. But it's the sister brand, one of the sister brands of Kona, like Kona 5 and all that lot. So that I tasted that IPA. It's a 5.8%, I think, IPA. All classic West Coast hops, dry notes of caramel, and then grapefruit and lemon and pine. And I'd never had a beer like that. It was absolutely phenomenal. And I did that sort of classic double take where you go, what the hell is this? And I only bought it because the tap handle was a giant hammer. And then the other one was I had a Brooklyn lager in an American bar near King's Cross. And I'd never had a lager that tasted like that Vienna lager does. So that's what really got me into the idea of craft and small batch beer. But I'd always been a real ale lover. I'd always found like macro beers way too gassy. I'd always really struggled. Like I'd had like 3 pints of it, and I know something about my body was just like, woof, I am bloated now. And so I used to drink cask ale because the carbonation is much, much lower. So I'd always enjoyed like the malt forward, notes of caramel, biscuits, raisins, stuff like that, rather than the lemony, lighter kind of beers. So that's why I was so open to the Red Hook. What was it? Longhammer IPA. That's what it's called. Red Hook Longhammer and the Brooklyn Lager. But I think London has some amazing pubs, and that's really what did it. When I moved to London in 2000, and just the array of different beers on tap, even before craft beer became a big thing. I moved to London just as the Colonel Brewery was opening. If you don't know the Colonel, they were sort of the grandfather of craft beer in the UK, along with Brewdog, and they still make fantastic beer in small batches. Haven't changed a bit since they founded in 2009, are still one of the best breweries in the UK. So that also kind of informed what kind of beer I love. Like, I still love the small batch, beautifully made one where you can probably know the brewer, and he probably knows the farmer, and that kind of story really appeals to me.
That's pretty cool. It's very wholesome and small community, but everybody knows each other, and it's really cool. Just never thought of it like that, really.
Yeah, I mean, in America and now in the UK, the industry's so big. It used to be such a small world, and now even when I got into beer in 2009, I think there were 1,000 and maybe 1,200 breweries around that, and now there's double that. And in America now, I think you're at about 8,500.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, which is just insane. You could never possibly. I remember, getting onto Rate Beer as a young beer geek and being like, I'm going to try and check in every beer in the world. And at the time, that was madness. But now, most of the beers on that site aren't even made anymore. So the tickers, the job of the ticker has become significantly harder than it was 10 years ago. And it's not quite got the same community feel, which is where all these issues have come from. You used to be able to call somebody out on a mistake just by calling them up. And now you have to find out on Twitter, and then you have to do a pile on, and then things might change in a year's time. And it's definitely an industry now, and craft beer has seen some growing pains, I think, as it's got too big to be regulated by the original good people that started it.
You're talking about brands and how they're growing, and the exponential growth that the industry has seen in craft brewing. You come from a marketing standpoint. What do you think is one thing that brands are not capitalizing on, or they're even hindering themselves when they're trying to appeal to a broad audience?
It's a really tough topic because there's lots of little things that they're doing wrong that add up to putting off new people coming into the sector. So you couldn't sort of go, it's, all the IP theft you do by putting Bart Simpson on a can or putting Lucky Charms on a can. You couldn't say that it's, the sexist branding that you're putting on there, where it's, women with big cleavages, or horrible puns about sexual positions, or whether it's appropriation of hip hop culture by people that never really listened to hip hop but just thought they put it on a can because it sounded fun. All of these kind of ill-advised marketing techniques that are at their best, they're slightly alienating to new people coming in who either don't get the joke or don't find it funny, or it's literally offensive to the communities that are involved. And I think that the problem with the beer bubble, as we call it, the people who are really into craft beer, is that it's exactly that. It's a bubble. It's not porous. There's not new ideas constantly coming in and going back out and coming back in and going back out. And the best thing that we could do is to reach out. Diversity isn't just it's not just about equal opportunity. It's also about improving yourself. It's about learning new things from different cultures and from people that you didn't know before, and from contexts that you never understood before. And that's how we bring new people in, not by just appropriating that content or that culture for that beer can. It's about, if you want to make a beer that references a culture, you need to go to people that are involved in that culture and speak to them, A, about using that content, and B, to work out what it is that would appeal to them. Because at the end of the day, that's what you want to do. You want to find new markets, appeal to those markets, explain why craft beer is great, and get them involved. Not just take the bits that you want from it, sort of asset stripping these other cultures, and then sitting on a panel like we do every year at CBC and the Brewers Journal lectures and stuff in the UK, where we go, I can't understand why there aren't more minority communities getting involved in craft beer. It's just genuinely it's outreach and it's representation within our companies and improving that would really help affect the biggest issue that craft beer faces, which is a drop in volume or a slowing in the growth. We're not reaching new markets, which means that because alcohol consumption, as a general rule, all around the world pretty much is going down, we're getting a slightly bigger slice of a considerably smaller pie every year. And unless we reach those new markets and approach those new markets and reach our hands out and go, hey, I want to listen to you. I want to understand why you're not in love with craft beer and what we can do to help with that. And while you're at it, I want all of your ideas to help us build this together. That's the best thing we can do. And at the moment, we're far too passive about it. we're a very open and welcoming community, but we're not actively reaching out to these communities at the moment.
Well said. Yeah, that was a larger magnitude than what I had originally thought. I'm going to be honest, but I appreciate the insight for sure. Yeah, because I'm pretty novice when it comes to IPAs and craft beer. I'm more of just I'll go out to a pub with my friends or something, but just knowing the entire dynamics behind it, and just in this hour we've been talking is really eye-opening. It's really great.
Yeah, sorry if I shot off at the deep end there. I think on a more smaller scale, something that I think breweries really need to be doing to be improving themselves is to be focusing on quality. So much of what we've done has been about the new, the novel. And I'm starting to see movements by breweries towards more quality assurance, more stable product, and better core ranges. And I think that COVID's really helped with that, because when you've got less money to spend, or you can only go to one shop because there's some kind of lockdown happening, people are reaching for stuff that they know. And I think in the long term, that might be a little silver lining from this whole situation. Not necessarily that core beers have got more popular, but recognizable brands and brands that are reliable and a great pint after pint are going to benefit. And I think that's really going to help new people coming into the sector as well, because they'll know what to expect.
Yeah, definitely. I feel on social media with COVID, I see people every day. They're like, "Oh, gotta get some more bottles of wine tonight," or I don't know. I just feel like people working at home or partially laid off. There has been a lot more alcohol consumption, at least from the people I've seen on social media, most of my friends and stuff.
Yeah, especially with a lot of the bars being closed over the last year and the hours being shortened. Everyone's going to the liquor store to get their beer that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's a brilliant opportunity, particularly in America, where you don't have tap badges, which we have in the UK, which denote exactly what's on tap really easily. Going into a liquor store where your labeling gets to stand out and be like, "Hey, buy me," is a really powerful moment for a brand. And if lots more people are drinking at home, people should be seeing that as an opportunity to stand out in terms of what they are putting on their packaging, but B, in terms of what's actually in that liquid, and hoping that when the pubs open up again, people will be looking for your brand. It's bad to talk about opportunities, I think, in pandemics, but there definitely is one there that if you're looking to secure the future of your business, you've got to be paying attention to.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem malicious almost to try and find the positive in a global pandemic, but if you're not trying to expand your horizons, then you're just not capitalizing where you could be. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, honestly.
No, I mean, the best thing you can do as a business owner is to make sure your business survives the pandemic, so you continue to employ these people and keep them safe and keep people happy. That's what brewing's all about. It's about offering something to the public that they love. So, it's an ethical thing to do to try and survive, so long as you're doing it in an ethical way.
Obviously, you consume a lot of beverages. You have the pleasure of trying many different styles and types from all over the world. What would you say is your hangover recipe after having one too many?
I have. We've done several videos on hangover cures, and I have inherited it. My surname's Garrett, and it's called the Garrett hangover. It's well known among my friends, my brother's friends, my parents' friends, that the Garretts get bad hangovers. And I am yet to find a true cure for a really bad hangover. However, sleep and water are the two best things. You need to be doing both of those if you're hungover. The other thing I highly, highly recommend is egg on toast. Just a fried egg, loads of butter, loads of salt on toast, because it's got several benefits. One is eggs are full of lots and lots of vitamins that are really good for you and for the processing of alcohol in your body. Two, carbohydrates will slowly release energy into you, which you'll need to cope with all of that. Three, salt is also great for you. You'll have lost a lot of salt through the process of pissing a lot. And four, it's also a meal that if you cook it and then you can't face it because you're feeling nauseous, still tastes good cold, which is the issue I butt up against constantly. I'm like, I think I'm ready for some food. You cook it and then you look at it and go, I can't handle that. So it's something that you can come back to half an hour later and it won't be disgusting. Whereas making yourself a bacon sandwich, that is horrible cold when you come back to it 45 minutes later.
Yeah, those English breakfasts are no joke from what I've seen.
Yeah, it's not something I'd go back to. I don't think I've ever had an English an English breakfast while hungover is just, it's too much food. I need to slowly nibble on something through the day.
Yeah, I was gonna say like, so it's like baked beans, toast, sausages,
Bacon, black pudding, mushrooms, fried tomatoes, scrambled egg or fried egg. Oh, it's a lot.
Yeah. That's pretty hefty. One video that I really liked was the hot sauce hangover sandwich.
Uh-huh.
So any listeners, I'm not going to ruin it, but definitely check it out. That's cool. I mean, I love hot sauce. I love like just spicy food in general.
Yeah, spicy food's another great one because that spicy food kicks out adrenaline and endorphins, both of which are painkillers. If you get your body a little bit like, what the fuck is going on here? Why am I eating this spicy stuff? Then actually some of the symptoms of the hangover will go away. It's also worth noting, and I say this, there probably should be a declaration underneath. Hair of the dog does work because alcohol is also a painkiller. However, all you're doing really is delaying the hangover, not curing the hangover in that particular case.
Yeah, I would say of all the people that I've talked to, they usually say like the hair of the dog is their go-to. I mean, like a Bloody morning or Bloody Mary the next morning. Like, yeah, I mean, I can see it.
So one question I always like to ask once we start to wrap things up, it's just a fun question. Do you have any ghost stories on any of your ventures traveling?
Ghost stories?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether it counts as a ghost story, but we, while we were filming our documentary in New England, we were driving, it's a pretty long drive from Hill Farmstead to Portland, Maine, which is about 5-6 hours. And we decided to break it up because we'd been filming in the morning and we knew we'd be knackered. So we picked a place in the, is it the White Mountains in New Hampshire? And we just picked the cheapest hotel because we were on a serious budget. And there was a brewery a couple of streets down. So we were like, okay, so that's cool. We'll go there for dinner, have some drinks, and we can stay in this hotel. Now, the White Mountains, I think, is a skiing location, but it was out of season. It was early March. Late March. So the ski season was over. And we stayed in this hotel, which was the scariest place I've ever stayed. From the outside, it looked relatively normal. Like, it had definite vibes of the motel, an Alfred Hitchcock style motel, but not too scary. But we walked in, and all around the reception were models of trolls, like the weird hairy trolls, with some puppets as well. The rooms were awful. There were like bits of the ceiling hanging down. There were scratches on the walls. There were, bite marks in the bedside table. It was properly freaky, like a werewolf had transformed in there.
Oh my God.
So we went out, we had dinner at this brewery. It was fine. We came back, we went to bed. In the morning, nothing happened. There was no ghostiness during the night. Like, we slept pretty well. But in the morning, we went down to the place where the breakfast was and found out that we were the only people staying in the hotel. I remember Brad, there was like a machine that had pre-made waffle batter, and he pulled it out, and I swear to God, there was mold in the batter.
Oh, no.
And we went, we got our food, the stuff that wasn't rotting, and went through into the dining room bit. And all it was just a couple of tables laid out on a dance floor. Just like 3 or 4 tables on I presume there must have been better days for this town. But they had a giant dance floor that looked like something hadn't been touched from like the 70s. And yeah, we just sat in the middle of a dark dance floor. The lights weren't even really on, and ate a moldy breakfast. And then literally left because we thought that might have been our last meal. We thought they were waiting with an axe for when we checked out. Once
oh my gosh.
Money. Not a ghost story, but possibly we thought we were going to be ghosts.
Definitely a story to remember for sure.
Yeah, terrifying. Why do you ask that question?
Oh, I mean, it's just as we start to wrap up the podcast, we just like to ask some fun questions. So ghost stories is always usually a good one.
I haven't thought about that terrible hotel for a while, so I'll probably have nightmares now.
You are welcome. How did you guys make it through the night there? Like, I would have just been sleeping in my car at that point.
I mean, that was suggested.
Seriously,
suggested. We went to my car.
You see trolls and bite marks in furniture?
I remember I remember thinking when I said goodnight to Brad and went into my room, I remember checking how firmly the chain on the door was still attached to the door in case somebody could kick it down. I was like, no, those screws go pretty deep. I'm pretty confident that nobody's going to kick that door down. But I mean, to be honest, and this isn't a secret about YouTube, this is a secret about being a beer tube creator. Those trips, they're so much fun for the first 3 days. But on the fourth hangover, when you haven't slept properly, half the time I was sharing a room with Brad, you're driving for 4 to 5 hours a day. It really does get to you. So you're knackered by the end of every day. Any sort of adrenaline and fear that I felt getting into bed, I think would have been conquered by the sheer exhaustion of a 10-day road trip through New England, drinking and driving every day. I feel like even if I had been murdered that night, I wouldn't have known. Like, they could have said at my funeral that I died peacefully in my sleep, even if there were 100 stab marks.
Yeah, that's all right. That's good to know, because Dan, me, and Joey, our other host, us three are planning on doing a trip around the United States for all the places that we visited. So we got about 40 different places we got to visit in the continental U.S. So maybe we should break that up. I don't know. The way that was just described to me, I was like, that does seem kind of taxing.
We gotta check the hotel out now.
Yeah.
I don't want to slag off the hotel here, but I'll tell you afterwards. I'll tell you the name of the hotel.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, my tips for anybody doing a road trip would be make sure that you do all the driving in the morning. Never schedule more than like 3 hour drive in a row, because if you're hungover and you're driving, A, that's not very safe because you'll be tired. But B, it would just be hell. So yeah, do the driving in the morning so that you've always got somewhere to look forward to. Call it quits if you're feeling tired. Don't keep pushing it.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
That sounds good, man. Well,
so as we start to wrap up, I guess one last final question we usually like to ask. What is one piece of advice that you'd like to give to others, if it's content creators or anyone that wants to get interested in beer and getting more informed about learning how everything works? Do you have any general information you'd like to give?
Yeah, I mean, whether you want to be like a food and drink content creator or a food and drink just geek and consumer, just try everything. That's sort of how I learn. I spent the first couple of years of the craft beer channel trying stuff and talking about stuff that I didn't like, that was a bit alien to me. The first time I tried sour beer, the first time I tried black IPA, all of these really unusual flavors take a little bit of time to get used to, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you remember your first ever sip of beer at the age of, 13, 14, you'd have thought it was disgusting, right? And now, it's the end of a hard day. It's what you do when you meet your friends. It's what you look forward to at the weekends. But the first time you had it, it was terrible. So yeah, that trying everything and not dismissing anything and not being a snob about anything is how we learn and how we broaden our horizons. And, it's not like the cliche is try everything once. I'd say try everything 7, 8 times. I still cannot fucking stand olives. But every time my wife has some, I'll take a bite just to check. I still fucking hate them, and I really do. They're the worst. But I keep trying them. And maybe one day I'll start the Craft Olive channel and everything will change.
You're a better man than me. I tried olives once when I was 14, and I never went back.
I can't see it.
Can't do it. They're disgusting.
Give them a go. Get the big green ones. I think their Kalamata olives are nicer, but they're still not great. They're still awful.
All right, one last question that I have personally is, what are your thoughts on the drinking age in the UK, which is 18, I believe, versus 21 in the US?
I feel like I'm probably going to be a bit of a cliche here, but I don't think I'm alone in Europe in looking over at America and saying, you can drive a car. I think you can drive a car, you can vote. Can you own a gun before 21?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can own a thing that can kill somebody, why on earth can't you have a drink? Really, it should be the other way around. Or really, guns should be outlawed completely. But, it's crazy. And what it also creates is this kind of it doesn't give kids time to get used to the idea of alcohol before the pressure is suddenly on them to get drunk. So they go to college and suddenly they're like, oh, I have zero ability to deal with this drug, but I'm expected to drink it in vast quantities. Whereas, in the UK at 18, we have a little bit more time before we're sent off away from our parents and have complete freedom in our choices. And in Europe, it's even better. In Europe, you can drink wine and beer at 16. You can't have spirits until you're 18, but you can have wine and beer. And just culturally, particularly in countries like Italy and France, it's just seen as something you'll start having from like 10, 11, 12 years, because it's not seen as just a drug to get drunk and to have a good time. It's also seen as a beautiful, artisanal, flavorful thing that you have with a meal with your family. It's a way of bonding with people, and it's part of your culture. And I think that's a much more healthy way to deal with it. If you look at alcohol problems in France and Italy, I don't know the exact statistics, but the UK is the country with the alcohol problems, and we have much stricter laws around it. And that's because sometimes when you regulate something, you make it seem dangerous and you remove people's experience of it. And we all know that experience, when it comes to dangerous situations, is a good thing. If you faced up to it before, the next time you do, you'll be wiser about it. So I think drinking age is crazy in the States. It's not great here, and in Europe they've got a better approach to it.
Yeah, I was gonna say something about college, but
no, yeah, I agree. And if anything, like you said, if anything, have beer legal at an earlier age, and then maybe have spirits legal at a later age, because that is a little more dangerous. But just starting off like being legal at the age of 21, it does seem to be almost a little later, with everything else being legal at an earlier age, with like buying guns and put up the army and all that.
And you can bet that it comes from some mad antiquated thing. Like, it's probably a remnant of prohibition back in the 20s that it's 21. There was probably some compromise struck at some point where it was like, well, we won't make it 18 as long as you let us have it back or something, which is how so many of these laws in older democracies like the US and the UK have happened. And they're not based in any science and any reason. They're based on very conservative people fearing for the disintegration of society. And I can assure you that's happening very well without people drinking at the age of 18. So it's, a kind of mad rule.
I wish it was 18, but that's all good.
It's fine. Now we're over the age. Think of the poor 19 and 20-year-olds.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Not at all. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's flown by. In fact, it's got dark while I've been talking. Because I'm attached to my laptop, I can't get to the light switch. So the time has flown. It's been great fun.
Yeah, for sure. The sun is just coming up here. So.
I think it's beer time for me.
Jonny from the Craft Beer Channel. Make sure to check out his podcast, a couple books, and thank you so much.
Not at all. Thank you guys.
All right, After Hours Nation, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to stay updated, you can check out our site at afterhourscast.com. Don't forget to tune in next Tuesday morning for our next episode. After Hours Nation, stay thirsty, my friends.